welcome.
Thank you very much. This sounds more like a meeting, so I'm sure we'll have a great conversation. So my name is Lamiaa. I'm the founder of a company called Le Cupboard. We basically create a soil-to-software solution to help people navigate all the food choices. And that's why what I want to talk about today is, let's go back to what's the start of good nutrition. So basically, whenever we talk about food, all the conversation is scattered between organic, plant-based, sugar, no sugar, and things that, even if it seems like they are big issues, but the problem that we have today is how can we focus on a holistic way from the start of the problem? So back in the 50s, if you take an orange and you analyze it and you see like what's the nutrition that's in it, and you compare it to an orange from today, the first problem that we're seeing here, beyond all the organic and the pesticides and things from here and there, it's we are having a soil issue that's making the difference in nutrition 20 to 100 times. So basically, if you look at this from an investment standpoint, when you were buying an orange with $1, you were getting 100% return on that dollar. But for now, you're getting less than 10% of it because of the soil. And no one is really unveiling this problem because it's at the core. Even when you buy at Whole Foods or at the farmer's market, this starting block needs to be the first episode when you talk about the right food. So okay, that's there. The second thing is when you look at like the healthcare scope and like how we go from people like who cure things once they happen, and you compare that to preventative healthcare and how can you avoid certain conditions with food, there is a lack and such a difference in the precision used by the healthcare world and pharma industry and doctors and everything in the food as medicine trend. So food as medicine trend, of course, like we've had just right now like a great talking about you should do this and you shouldn't be doing this, but as food is the most frequent decision we make every day, how can the average person, not having a PhD in nutrition or in chemistry or anything, take all these elements into account? So another layer is, even if for when you take the decision of, okay, I'm going to eat plant-based, I'm not going to eat sugar, I'm not going to eat this, there's something called the food matrix. So what's the food matrix? Basically, the food matrix is how things that you eat interact with each other and how can they allow your body to absorb them or not. Example, red bell pepper. If you're on a diet, weight loss diet, and you're like, okay, I'm going to skip all the oils. Not putting olive oil on a red bell pepper doesn't make you extract any of the vitamins. But counterintuitively, like what we think is, okay, like I'm trying to kind of manage my calories and I'm going to just skip the oils or skip this or that. If you take a cup of tea after eating a steak, you're not getting any of the iron because all the theine just attracts like a magnet all the iron that you're eating. So basically there's like 20,000 of like these type of combinations, and it's just kind of challenging for everyday's household to add these type of things into account more than just the food that you're eating. After that comes everything regarding the heat temperatures and how do you cook things. So basically tomatoes between raws and cook, if the tomatoes are cooked, you have like more antioxidants, and the difference in antioxidants is 50%. Again, if you just follow what bloggers and what like things that are out there are telling you to do, there's a lot of chances that you might just end up being confused and not knowing what's really good for you. So what's really interesting as a message in all what I'm saying here is like making food choices that are relevant are really unique to the person, because first, before being people, we are caterers to the 99% of us, which are the microbiome. So imagine you're running a catering business. The first thing you will ask yourself is, what does my customer want? And we're running this business 3 times a day without really doing this customer survey and just like eating whatever the 1% of us wants, which is our from a neuroscience perspective, what our brain and what like we were conditioned as like a society to crave. So the interesting thing is when you look at the last 40 years, marketing has been shaping the products that are out there in the market. So something everybody very familiar with marketing and how like the unique selling proposition, meaning that for each product you can just talk about one thing that stands out. This has been shaped around a 10-second radio spot. So why would you have a product that has more things that you can advertise for? And the fact that you have these 10 seconds to talk about your product has made us talk about, okay, the fair trade, where the radio spot will be only about fair trade, the healthy thing, the green thing, the organic thing, the zero sugar, the light this, the kind of things that are just tweaking the edges while we're talking about a very serious topic. So that's number one. Number two, about at the end, like what we've been eating and what we've been actually congratulating ourselves as a society was really about the technology, how we've been able to use technology after the war to really make food as accessible to everyone. So one example I always want to take is Napoleon Bonaparte has given a medal to the guy who invented cans, because he helped all the army survive during wars. And that was a gratification taking one metric, which is these people found food that was safe to eat for a long time. But today, which is really striking, is at the edge of the technology and like being able to dig into facts and to really check for ourselves, like with the internet and all that, we're still at this single issue kind of frame of analysis where we will be congratulating a brand because it's vegan. It happens it's Oreo, it's filled with sugar, or something because it's fair trade. And yeah, it's fair trade, but it's just focusing on one part of the story where it's like handouts and you don't know what this money is made, like how does it end up, or it's filled with sugar, or it's just not the whole story. So how can we dream a food world where we are entitled to zero compromise, where getting something that's convenient, affordable, tasty, taking into account all the science in the world, and taking into account every single data about yourself and about your history can make a difference. So that's where we created Le Cupboard. So basically what we say is you have, number one, everybody wants to eat healthy, but everybody settles for what's convenient. So that's number one. And I think even when we're really focusing on convenience, we end up eating what retailers decided to offer us. So what we eat, 70% of what we eat, which are snacks, breakfasts, and lunches during weekdays, are decided by what we find. It's because it's the restaurants across the street where you work. It's because it's the closest store to your house. So all these decisions are not made by you, but made by your environment. So you just realistically, because no one has the time to sprout things for 2 weeks and do research on all peer-reviewed research that like contradicts each other every day, how can we really make a difference around that? So we use natural language processing, which is basically reading every single bit of information in the internet, and with certain criteria like who funded the research. Okay, Coca-Cola funded the research from Minnesota University saying that drinking Coca-Cola helps you drink more water. Great. I don't want to, it is peer reviewed, it is legit research, but I don't want to be taking this into consideration. I think we can agree on that. Second thing, you take, who here have heard of ketogenic diet? Keto? Okay, so you have, and now like it's a big trend in Silicon Valley, is you put like this spoon of butter in your coffee because it triggers all your glycemic, like it lowers the glycemic index. There is legit peer-reviewed research over 12 weeks on 400 people showing that ketogenic diet is the fastest way to reverse diabetes. Legit research, right? Same people, 48 weeks, highest rate of colon cancer, highest rate of even like dementia likelihood, and also the highest rate of gastrointestinal diseases related to guts. So here, for people who are not used to reading research, you would find any research that looks like legit, and you can just make decisions out of this. And this is too dangerous to be taken just whoever has followers on Instagram today is giving us advices. So how can we kind of change the system in a way where you have a trusted third party taking decisions as if you were every day at every second, learning everything from the research existing today, and translating this into the physical world and giving you food that's taking into account your exact profile and that you can get in places where you spend most of your time, which are the place where you work, the hospital where you go, the school, the train station, the building where you live. So Le Cupboard stands for, it comes from a cupboard, the idea that if you have a son or someone at home with an allergy, you are unlikely to put something that's not good for them in this cupboard. So it's kind of curated. It's somewhere, it's software enabled in two ways, where every morning we make food in our central kitchen. The central kitchen takes into account the food matrix, how things blend with each other. It also takes into account the neuroscience and how can we crave the food that we love. Because again, I'm gonna get back to the marketing part, but at the end of the day, does anyone here wake up in the morning and say, okay, today I feel like cumin, or I feel like eating saffron? Okay, but like it's very rare. Yeah. It's the problem here is we've been so polarized with how marketing has been dividing savory and sweet. So if you feel like sweet, it's going to be a chocolate chip cookie, or that's like the end goal. Or if it's savory, it should be something like chips or something that's super salty. And we're so polarized that we don't have the ability to really break down the other pleasures that are not filled with salt and sugar and sodium and all this. And we're able just to express the needs to ourselves to say, oh, today I'm going to eat this. So since you're having, imagine a country with three governments. You have the government of the brain, you have the government of all these microbiome, which is basically, this is democracy because it's 99% of you and they know what's good for you. The brain is kind of this dictatorship where he decides that the chocolate chip cookie is the way to go and they will go for it. And then you have another government trying to just look at facts, a bunch of geeks trying to understand what's going on and trying to explain to both the crowd inside us and the crowd outside us, which are the brain, what's good for us. So when you say, oh, I feel anxious, and you feel like there is a movement in your guts going up, it's basically a riot of your microbiome. They're not happy and they're trying to express this to your brain. And there are two ways to react to this. It's either you have eaten enough food to give enough weapons for this riot so that they can equally negotiate with your brain, and that means that the mental health is on a right path, or you are just feeding them sugar, which is basically fake promises that they end up asking your brain for accountability. And this is how this is the starting point of depression and mental health issues. So when you go back I'll go back to this cupboard where, so you have a software. The first software is really your ability to have constant touch with science and constant touch with the reality of what makes food affordable and accessible and convenient. So you would go and find a screen and say, I'm pregnant, I just had a Starbucks this morning, I don't like nuts and I like spicy, and then it creates all the menu, and in 30 seconds it gives you food that has been made in the exact same precision as a drug, which is like the pharma industry and all the things that are legit and that the FDA approves as something that's good for you. And then you are on a plan where if you need 50% of your vitamin, it's going to be this poke bowl that's made out of forbidden rice and mango and beets and really create, like, gives to your brain something to kind of experience pleasure in a different way from the two poles that I've been talking about. The second thing is, okay, I know that this is good for me, and I just don't trust the process that I'm going to be, that this process is reliable, that I am reliable enough to stick to the schedule. So what happens here is you have an app and you just download it and you give them, of course, like it's all encrypted and like no one's taking your health data. You just say, okay, the worst case would be you discover that you have a condition, you walk to your doctor's room, he gives you diet and drugs, he knows you're gonna go to Walgreens and buy the drugs, has no idea what you're going to do with your diet because it's like artistic talk. He thinks of what's healthy and you think about what's healthy and it's never matching. So if you had to give a third-party access to this app where your doctor is actually seeing, oh, this is good, this is not gonna help, the way we can cut into the public health budget can go up to 80% of the $600 billion spent every year on diseases that can be prevented through food. And that sounds very complicated if you assume that the consumer needs to do all the job. If you need to go for a 10-year journey to get a PhD in science, to do like all the everyday reading what's up in the news, having a chef, sourcing from the right soils, and doing all these blends, taking all this into account. Now this might sound like, and I experienced that, like whenever you see the word of clean eating and the Gwyneth Paltrows of the world and all these type of things, it becomes too elitist and too edgy that sometimes it takes out of the conversation the people who need it the most. So how can we solve for that? The first thing is when you switch the whole analysis of your food budget from the money you spend on quantity, so let's say I buy a pound of tomatoes, to nutrients per dollar framework. So I don't want to be getting into any other metric rather than nutrients per dollar. So hello, Subway, you're selling me a sandwich of $5. I don't want to be checking organic or anything. Let's just have a conversation about nutrients per dollars. Let's say you spend $25 per day. The $5 of Subway needs to be 20%. It's 20% of your budget. So for it to be a fair deal, it should be 20% of your nutrients. A Subway sandwich is 0.3% of your nutrients. So it's the fanciest thing you could get in a world where prices are shown on a nutrients per dollar basis. And that goes the same way for calories. So calories are also a metric. It's a proxy that gives you like, okay, let's track. It's fine if you get this bag of chips. It's only $200. It's 200 calories. It's fine if you get like a Diet Coke. It's 0 calorie. Well, this again, it's not the right metric because the right metric is what am I getting for these calories? If I'm getting 20% of my nutrients out of a 500 calorie thing, it's a great deal. And that's why, like, one of the biggest things that people like, who are against the plant-based diets and the veggie, all the veggie movement is, well, I will end up just eating beans and carbs that are filled with starch, and I'm not going to get my nutrients, which is like judging, it's like if you had to judge taking something that's good for you based on something that's like the worst thing you could do, because it's not, food is such like a crazy word where you don't know, like when someone says that they're eating something, it doesn't mean that they're eating the thing that you think they're expressing, because of how, like if I say I'm eating a tomato, I don't know if I'm eating a heirloom tomato, an organic tomato, a cherry tomato, is it cooked, is it raw, and all these elements are taken into account. So if we switch the two metrics are nutrients per dollars and nutrients per calories, then the whole conversation around should I put oil, should I not put oil, like all these little things that are really driving us crazy. For my job, I track blogs and peer-reviewed research and press about that every day. And I can like draw a graph showing that eggs are good in the morning and are bad at 5 p.m. and then good the other day at 6 a.m. And just like there is a whole press war financed by sometimes the dairy lobbies, sometimes legit research, sometimes also like the people that are from our side, which are like animal protection, they would just claim, well, if you eat meat, you're going to get autism. And no one has the data for that, which all kills all the credibility of all the research that has been done before. So it's such a crowded space out there that we need to kind of rethink the whole value chain of how we get food. So with these cupboards, what we're trying to do is saying, I can go to a food desert, have the machine and the cupboard accept food stamps, have the insurance cover 60% of it because it can reverse prediabetes, it can reverse things that are even sometimes not in an advanced stage, but thanks to technologies that are genetics and DNA testing and all that, you can know that like you have you're more likely to get this condition rather than this one compared to all what you can get. So basically, how can we rethink the food industry by just thinking about the history of how what we do today happened to be what we do today? And it's a fascinating way to explore history, because the food business is half of the world's workforce. It's the most frequent decision we make every day, and it's also the core of the transportation business and the warehousing and everything. So it's really the heart of the economy. So if we start off our relationship with when we were living in villages, you know the face of the person who sells you meat or sells you the baked goods or the vegetables. So there is an accountability where there is a face behind the product that we have lost with industrialization. Like, you have customer support, you have faceless organizations that can't really, the person, like in how we say in Asian cultures, losing face is not a thing anymore, because this person is just, they don't know that you know their address, and they're going to go there. If you have a food poisoning, you're going to go and tell them, this is a bad thing for me, what have you done? So we moved from a trusted environment to trusting corporations. And trusting corporations, which I'm not against, but it's just, what are these corporations doing to show us that they're working for our good? Okay, let's see what happened in the whole war about food labeling. Can you imagine that in 2017 we're just reaching the point where listing sugar is okay? Like, before it was totally fine to just mix between the sugar that's naturally occurring in a strawberry and this granulated sugar that people add. So long story short, if you go also into the retail markup, so when you go to a restaurant and you buy a meal for, let's say, $15, you're basically buying 75 cents of food. You're also buying $1 of labor, and then you're buying customer acquisition, you're buying all the logistics thing, packaging. How can we make if you're paying $15, how can we make you make the most of it with, that goes to the people making the food and the actual food? So the solution for that is, as we distribute with these mobile cupboards, everything comes in glass containers. So basically, you pay a deposit for these glass containers, but all the money that you're paying goes to very high quality ingredients that if you had to go to a restaurant, you will buy them at least 3 times the price. So what we're trying, all that, it's a big conversation that can take hours and weeks. But the key message here is, how can we leverage change within our organizations? Whether we're students in a university, or we work for a company, or we just have a residential building, or we go to a store, how can we be agents of change? Because this is not just about what we eat, but it's really about the healthcare system. It's about how the environment shapes the world, and then shapes agriculture and shapes so many lives. And how can we make sure that the right thing is the obvious thing to do, instead of having it being the most complicated thing? So for anyone who knows an organization who wants to engage into this conversation, I'd be happy to engage. And anyone who wants to come visit us at 1298 Church, which is our kind of kitchen lab where we host events to talk about each of these topics and really dig the food industry, not from a finger-pointing perspective, but rather into digging into facts and applying the same science that we apply into all our investments to our food dollars. Thank you very much. And any questions?
What's the name of the company that you work for?
Le Cupboard. It's L-E Cupboard. C-U-P-B-O-A-R-D. L-E, like in French, le, and then cupboard, like a kitchen cupboard. C-U-P-B-O-A-R-D. Sorry? Yes, at Le Cupboard, yeah.
And where are you currently selling your product?
So for now, we have these mobile cupboards that we place in companies, hospitals, and other like residential buildings. We also do just the food at the Equinox gyms and other small businesses. But really, the idea for us is to place these mobile cupboards in areas where people don't find the right thing, and which are like food deserts and all that.
Can you describe your most popular item?
Well, it depends, again, because it really depends on everyone's goal. Well, we've been having like an eggplant falafel that has like 17 ingredients, enriched with hemp, and comes with a romesco sauce, with almonds and kale that has been great, so yeah.
So this is kind of like I guess like a deeper question.
Yeah, sure.
So how would you make food accessible and cheaper for all, I guess, classes and
Yeah.
populations?
That's a great question. So as I said, like today when you see the value chain, the number of middlemen in the food industry is triple all the middlemen of all the other industries, whether you take fashion or auto industry or all that. Because between the small farmer and the guy who runs the trucks company and the truck company and the guy who has the warehouse, and from the warehouse to the fridge and to the fridge to the restaurant, there's also like there's markups at every step. So what we do is we cut all these middlemen by working directly with farmers, with an aggregator basically who just do the pickups at different farms, which makes our purchasing structure like 40% cheaper than like if you had to buy food for yourself. Then you have the packaging part that takes up sometimes like to 50% markup, the fact that you buy things in bulk. So if you had to go to if you had to go to Whole Foods and buy your own organic ingredients, you will be, let's say if you want to get like almond butter, you will need to have like a large quantity, and you will end up either like over consuming or just it will go to waste. So that by cutting waste, we also cut prices. And then the last mile delivery, which is like when you take all these apps like Uber Eats or any other delivery mechanism, when you spend the $12, $6 go to Uber. So basically, by doing the distribution ourselves with these mobile cupboards, it's really optimizing the whole cost structure.
Do you guys use trucks, or how do you pick up the food from the farms?
So we worked today, at this stage, we work with an aggregator who has trucks and just picks up the food every morning from the farms. And the way we want to go is really to focus on getting our own structure to be able to pick up this from all the permaculture farms that we work with.
Do you guys have like a limit as to how many clients you're like planning to have? Because at the point, once you have like a lot of clients, then the structure is going to have to change in the sense of where you're going to, impact it higher. Because if you have more clients, you'll need more in general. And
Yeah.
then the drive to the farm.
Yeah.
In all those trucks is also going to increase.
Totally. So that's...
Are you guys kind of keeping track of that?
Totally. So the way it works is you need to work with a cluster of farmers. Of course, if you are with like a family-owned farm with like 3 people, there's like two things we work on. The first thing is you help them scale by having consistent orders and just like helping them get all the certifications and all that to be able to grow and have like more efficient operations. And the second thing is to work within a parameter of like, let's say like the South Bay or like just somewhere where it makes sense for a truck to do the pickups with as many farms as possible, which brings me to the point that local is not really something that you should be going after, because if you are like, we're in California and it's the best state to get produce, but imagine you're in Alaska or in Alabama. The fact that you're forcing the soil to grow something that's not good for it, it means that you are having like an overall impact that offsets all the impact you're trying to do with sourcing locally. So what we really need to focus on is the first metric, which is how to get the best nutrient-dense food. So if it requires bringing it from Mexico, from any other parts of the world, that's the first metric you're going after, because every smallholder farmer has the right to have like a dignified job, and it's not because it's not local that they don't need the support. From a from an environmental perspective, the transportation accounts for less than 17% of the overall impact of what you eat. So basically, if you're just getting food from the farm just close to your house, but the soil, you're forcing the soil to do something that's not good for it, you're basically not really creating the impact you wanna get. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Like wasabi, it doesn't grow here.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and you guys are a store or a place where you can sit and eat, or?
So the mobile cupboards are actually a cupboard that's software enabled and unattended 24/7 in companies and hospitals and all these locations. But you can come, we opened the cupboard cafe, which is a way to have this type of conversation in our kitchen lab, because this is our production kitchen where we distribute all the food.
So you're a delivery company, but I can purchase the cupboard for myself? Or not?
You can. You can if you like. It's either because you are in a location where there is a cupboard, or because you can come to the cafe and buy it.
So they're like vending machines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 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 Sorry, you had a question that I didn't say.
You already answered it, and I just missed that part. Where is the cafe?
It's 1298 Church.
In some of your dishes, there's a grain called
Seksu.
Yes. Can
Yeah.
you share it with the group?
Totally, yeah. So seksu is a grain that looks like couscous that we make in Morocco, and that has 4 times the iron of beef and 4 times the phosphorus of salmon. And the whole point of this grain is saying whenever people want to go on a diet, they try to cut on carbs, which is very bad for the microbiome and for our fiber intake in general. And here, like the point was to say every single whole grain that we have, whether it's quinoa or all the best grain that we eat are not bioavailable. So for people who are not familiar with bioavailability, imagine whenever you go to a restaurant, you pay the full amount and you leave 70% of the food on the table, and you do that at every single meal. That would shock everyone, right? But this is what we do with the nutrients coming from plants. So especially for nuts and grains, when you get a pistachio, you're getting, because of the anti-nutrients and things that are in there that the plant has made for itself to protect itself from insects and from anything that can happen to them. And there is a solution to that called activation. At a household level, it takes a lot of organization because you need to soak and sprout and have like all these anti-nutrients taken care of by putting things in the dark for 2 weeks. I mean, it's a long process that some people do it, but it's just not reasonable to expect everyone to do it. So this grain, the seksu, is bioavailable because we do the whole process by soaking that in apple cider vinegar for more than 2 weeks. And it's also respecting all the temperatures to keep the nutrients as available as the others.
It's like the brown rice. I've heard information lately that brown rice is very not good.
It's not. It's full of arsenic, actually, because,
yes.
yeah.
So, and I just got the whole bag from Costco, thinking that brown rice is healthier than white rice.
Yeah.
And I already went through the whole process teaching my kids.
But that's a great example. So who told you about the brown rice? Who told you that, what was the source of information that brown rice is good?
Whole grain, and whole grains are better than...
Yeah, but this, if you dig into how did you get this information, I'm sure it's pieces of scattered information in what might look like legit articles, but it's just, unfortunately, the way it works is whoever is writing about nutrition always takes about one angle. So for example, of course, if in a world where the only food is white rice, brown rice is amazing.
But the white rice considered, like, always was like, oh, it's too processed, the top layer is taking off, there's no nutrition to it, so...
Exactly, but that's the whole difference between comparing things to an absolute great or comparing things relatively to something that's just in the store. And the way the retail industry and the marketing has been shaping the way we compare things, it's always this versus this, but both elements and both products are in a universe that hasn't been designed for you. It hasn't been designed to sell whatever products the brands are creating. But if you say, well, what I need is this and this and this in terms of nutrition, like these micronutrients and this balance of macros. And then you need to ask brands, okay, what do you have for me? And if you don't, I mean, of course, no one has the time to do that. That's why, like, it's a whole fight, and it has to be, like, you need a group of people dedicating all their time to that, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's my next question. So what do you do when you know there's duality between this and this? Like, what do you do? What would you do? Like, how would you know which one's better? Well, would you have to put like lots of research?
So I mean, the sad story here is it takes a lot of research, but the good news is if with all the content marketing and the things that we can do right now, there is a way to get to give people the tool to decide for themselves. And the way to decide for themselves is you need to know what are your metrics. Because if I just show you, okay, this is a bag of brown rice and a bag of white rice, and I only talk about protein or I only talk about fiber, because I put in your mind that fiber is the only metric you should be looking at, you're not going to look into all the others. But if you define your own metrics by saying, my metric is the nutrient density, how do...
want to be toxic.
No, it's not even toxic, because it can be not toxic.
Saying sounds like really invasive.
Yeah, but you know, the whole talk about food safety from toxicity standpoint is doing kind of the advertising for the processed food, because processed food has been solving for food safety for the longest term. So it's all like it's high heat temperatures, it's killing all the germs. Whoever said like germs are not good, I mean it's another topic, but it's all kind of again solving for metrics that people, it's inception. It's they put in your mind that this is what you need to look at. Protein. How come like we're all like the whole craze about Greek yogurt? It's like when you look, if you do a data analysis about the yogurt sales and the PR around protein, dairy protein, it's just like there's a weak difference between protein is great, new brand of Greek yogurt. Like, okay, we're doing like a sales at Walmart for $1 per cup. What happens is we just increase the number of protein you need. And this, again, like because this is not what you spend 24 hours on, it's normal to be just to not...
Rice has this.
Yeah.
Forget about animal dairy, whatever.
Yeah.
Rice, it has 60% of protein or whatever.
Yeah.
Dairy, so, but which one?
Which, by the way, is true.
So I don't know what to feed my kids when I come home. Is jasmine whatever?
Well, I can give you my email and we can have all this conversation, because I think instead of... Because again, like the way the American plate has been designed is this part for carbs, part for veggies, and part for protein. Just labeling this way means that the veggies don't have protein, means that the veggies don't have carbs, and means that all this protein elements is what binds the whole thing together. But if you talk about things differently by saying, okay, I need this amount of fiber, it's just a matter of, okay, let's say if you had to buy a house, and I tell you, okay, you need, we're in San Francisco, but let's say it's $1 million. You need $1 million to buy this house. And I tell you, this amount is for bathrooms, and this amount is for rooms, and this amount is for the living room. It seems like a distribution that like just talks about the time you spend in this house. But what if I say, okay, like this, we have this amount of ceramic used. Would that be like a helpful metric? It doesn't mean anything, because you don't know how. Yes, it's true. It's a metric, but it's not the metric that's helping you and guiding you to the right decision. Yeah, please.
So your metric is nutrients.
Two metrics. The first one is nutrients per dollars,
Nutrients per calories.
and then nutrients per calories.
Okay, but by nutrients, what do you mean?
Exactly. So this is the second bottleneck. The second bottleneck is legally the FDA is requiring food vendors and like everyone like who's selling food that's packaged to talk about macronutrients, which are, so everybody's familiar here about macro. So macro is what's building your body. So we're talking fat, carbs, and protein. So these are the macronutrients. But these are just like the building blocks, and they need like soldiers with them to be able to do the job that they need to be doing, which are the micronutrients and minerals and all like what you read on juicing things, antioxidants and all that. So if you just follow the labels of the FDA, you will have info about calcium. Why do we have info about calcium? It's not because it's more important, it's because the dairy industry was interested in pushing calcium. Then you have sometimes manganese and magnesium because the chocolate industry was interested in that because chocolate has more magnesium. No, and then you have vitamin C that has been pushed by the Association of Oranges and Citrus farmers across the world. And so that's vitamin C. And then you have vitamin A that's just there because like scientifically, like it would have been a big joke to put vitamin C without vitamin A because kind of they work together. But that's, yeah.
Okay, so what is, let's get to the point.
Yeah.
What is your standard of nutrition?
So our standard of nutrients is we do the analysis on our own without the FDA for every ingredient that we use. So I can tell you even the ash and every single selenium, things that you don't even learn about in standard packaging. And then we package that. The challenge that we have at this stage is because we're the only ones talking about the nutrient density, if you go to another salad bar, if you're lucky if you find calories. So because it's such an isolated metric, you will just give up on it because you will see us as weirdos because we're talking about that. So as a user, so two things to do. First thing is claim information from whoever is selling you food. If whenever you show up somewhere, you're asking about, I want the list of ingredients, I want to know how you're sourcing this, and I want the full micronutrient. You're not gonna get it because it's just so imbalanced that it needs to reshape the whole food industry to get to it. The second thing is of course, like what we're doing is we're building these products to be as available to everyone everywhere, and also train people to learn this knowledge and be able to buy the ingredients by themselves to cook for dinner. Because again, we're not in a world where we want you to be eating from a cupboard 24/7. We want you to fix the 70% of the food that you eat anyway without really focusing on the outcomes. And then for dinners and weekends, what we want to do is really train you to make decisions for yourself. And the second thing is from a nutrients per dollar perspective, it's actually easier because it's not requiring, you can just do it on macros. So if you go to Subway or on MyFitnessPal or anything, you can have the split of macros. So if you get a chicken sandwich, of course there's 40 grams of protein, but you need only 22 grams. So just the number, and this is just like inflation, it's like how now 40 grams of protein is becoming the new normal, but this is too much protein. So what happens is it's creating ketosis in our body, which makes that you have such an imbalance without the soldiers to work for this protein. And that's why Michael Phelps can eat these type of calories because he eats so many other greens and things to be able to support this level of protein. But if not, it's not yeah.
And can you quickly touch on oil? Because you mentioned, like the lecture before was saying how oil is bad, for our bodies, and the book was recipes with no oil in it.
Yeah.
And what I know, I agree with what you're saying, that some vegetables don't give you nutrition without oil.
Exactly.
Using oil. So do you use oil, or you use it in certain products when you cook, or everywhere in your dishes?
Yeah.
Like what do you do with oil?
So with the previous lecture was really amazing into touching into the microbiome, and I love her approach. Yeah. One problem here is if you talk about if it's safe. I mean, if I want to play it safe, I'm going to tell you cut oil and cut rice and cut this because there's so many elements that go into it that I can't give you a one size fits all advice. So that's why it's very important to know, okay, which oil at which temperature with which food.
So you do the oil.
We do oils, yeah.
It doesn't mean that if I'm buying salad, there is oil in it. So you can do salad with lime.
Exactly.
And, red peppers with oil.
Yeah. You know, for example, one of the dressings we make is orange blossom water, which is water with flavor. And it's the fact that you mix it with oil. First, instead of putting 1 tablespoon, you put just 1/3. Instead of putting it's just the fact that revisiting new flavors and being okay with all the layering is is key, first to the biodiversity of the gut, and also to not be into the, even, I know I'm in a vegan festival, but again, it's not about preaching veganism 100%. Do whatever ethically works for you, and also do whatever, it happens that data is showing that plant-based diet, at least for 80% of your meals, supports long-term health. So that's a fact. It's not my opinion. It's not based on any emotions. It's just the fact. Now, with the other 20%, if I had to tell you, okay, imagine you're a salesperson traveling 5 times a week and just being in whatever airport. So you have basically it's either you spend 3 hours making your own food and bringing it in your bag, which the TSA will never allow you to take, so it's not going to happen, and at the end you will just buy whatever junk food is sold at the airport, or you will starve yourself, which would put all yourself into starvation mode, and also have all the, and this is something I've been struggling with, which is the stress hormone that actually tells your body we're in a war mode and you can't do anything. And basically it's called all the serotonin levels, and the serotonin levels, the higher it is, it's the higher authority in your body. And they just tell them stop. It's like if you had like a hurricane and someone says, we don't know how we're going to use our resources because it's tough times, so we're not going to spend anything. And then you can go to the gym, you can do like a marathon, you're not going to burn because your body is into starvation mode. So if you put yourself into a starvation mode, you're not first, like, as again a caterer, you're having like the 99% of you starving and becoming to kill each other and eat each other, which will kill the biodiversity in your gut. So that means that your gut bacteria will not be equipped enough to face adversity. It's like a company. If you don't have diverse workforce, if something happens that people culturally don't get, you will not be able to react to it. So it's the same thing for your gut bacteria. And the fact that you need to focus on how your overall health is, rather than, so anyone cutting oil, by the way, and cutting meat will see that how the skin becomes dries out, because the skin is our largest organ, and they take 80% of the water and 60% of the oils of the body. So that means maybe you're solving for chronic disease, but you're not solving for mental health and for things imagine you just wake up and see things on your face. I'm not sure you're going to be happy about your day.
It sounds like you do a lot of work with combining all of this. I would take it off of my shoulder, just not to think about, oh, I put oil here and I don't put oil here. So
yeah,
it sounds really great to have you with your options.
Thank you. Yeah, well that's how we really, and for us, beyond just the product and having this cupboard, is really giving people the tool to choose for themselves. The highest thing of success is having a customer challenging me about nutrient density or asking me about.
Exactly what I'm about to ask you.
Yeah.
Is that nutrient density is who creates the standard? Who came up with the percentage? And this is what I get lost.
So this is okay.
Images that are
Sure. So have you ever seen in a food labeling somewhere where they say this one serving of this provides 8%, okay, daily of whatever, okay. The thing is, what you're seeing is only 4 micronutrients, minerals and vitamins. The fact that we do the whole research to get the 37 micronutrients, we have the numbers for each micronutrient. So from ash to selenium to beta carotene to vitamin E with the 2 levels, the vitamin A, all the B's, omegas, blah, blah. So we have percentages, right? You have 37 percentages. You do an average, and then you put it, you have, let's say that the average for this meal, and especially our meals, it starts for an entree at 45%. So it is 45% of the nutrients you need per serving. Now, let's go back to the calories. Generally speaking, according to the FDA, again, we can debate that, but let's go with the assumption of the 2,000 calories. That doesn't mean anything, but let's just work with it because it's becoming too complicated. If the 45% are coming from 1,500 calories, you can tell me, go back with your nutrients. This is not a good deal because I'm paying for it 3 times the price in calories. But if it's if it's 47% of your 2,000 or 2,500, depending if it's a man or a pregnant woman or lactation, I mean, it's very different. It's just a ratio. So you take the number, okay, you read the calories, you divide them by 2,000 if you're a woman, 2,500 if you're a man, and if you're pregnant or lactation, it goes to 2,800. So you do this ratio, it gives you a percentage, right? Then you have the percentage for the micronutrients. You do the percentage of the micronutrients divided by the percentage on the calories, and it gives you a number that's between 0 or 2, 3. So 1 is a good deal, less than 1 is bad, more than 1 is a superfood. So that's basically the grade. But for you as a user, the bottleneck is how can you find all these elements? Because when you go to a salad bar, you don't have that. But the way you can push the industry forward is to ask them for, I want the full list of ingredients. I want to know exactly, of course they can't disclose the recipes, but at least they can disclose the micronutrients, which you won't get, but at least it will push the conversation further.
And then you said that you provide lectures to educate people.
Yeah, just come to 1298 Church and send me an email. I can.
Do you have information? Where are your business cards?
Hannah has everything and has also coupons for our next brunch. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope it was useful.
What did you say about the skin drying up after not eating meat?
No, not eating oil or nuts, because it dries out here and it dries out the eyes and it dries out like and that's why like it creates also wrinkles, because basically wrinkles are dehydration and a lack of oil and sun. So that's the element.
A lot of water.
Yeah.
And oil, really? Because they were talking about in the other sessions now.
Exactly, that's super confusing, and that's why you can't be challenging people because sometimes you read a certain number of books.